on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of JaAR. JaAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe
and Amy
Review, and this is our twice weekly show where we review the Magic stories. And today we are back with more of the Brothers' War, this time with more side stories, aka present day stories, with Chapter 2, Antiquities, by Reinhard Suarez. My quick review at the top of this one is, this one was cool. I think that if you skipped this one, you wouldn't miss much in terms of the overall story, but I still think it was interesting and worth your time to read.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. I don't know if I felt like it's gonna be super important to know the information that's in it. I think so.
It's unclear until we read more of them.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Sorry.
Yeah, how dare you.
I tried.
So, if that intrigues you and you're interested in going to read the story for yourself, whether you've read it before and want a refresher or whether you've never read it before, regardless, to help you out as best as possible, the top link in the description down below will take you right to this story so you can read it for yourself. We try to remove as many barriers as possible so that we can get people, or so that people can get out to read the story for themselves. And then, of course, if you leave here to go read the story, we would love it if after you are done, you would come back here and join us for the full review itself, because we want you to let us know your thoughts. Compare them to ours, contrast them to ours, tell us stuff that you liked that we didn't talk about or disliked that we didn't talk about. Leave it in the comments down below and keep that conversation going. That is super important. That is why we do these shows. Besides to generate more interest in the stories, it's to get other people's opinions as well. So never ever hesitate to leave your thoughts down in the comments below. We want to hear from you. Before we get on to the full review itself, please don't forget while you are here to subscribe and ring that bell so that you will get notifications whenever any of our videos come out, including more of these jars in the coming weeks. Again, I mentioned we're trying for 2 a week. We've gotten it all so far, knock on wood. So we're trying. Thank you for staying with us and bearing with us. We've also got a lot of pre-release content coming up, so stay tuned for that. And because I know that this is coming out on Monday, this coming Thursday, the 11th, the 10th, I think it's the 10th of November. I can't quite see my calendar from here. I think it's the 10th. Is the early access event for the Brothers' War card set on MTG Arena, sponsored by Wizards of the Coast. And we would love it if you would join us for that. That is starting at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Right here on this channel, we will be live for at least 12 hours, barring something crazy happening. But we're going to try for at least 12 hours streaming the new set. We will be playing Limited. That is draft and sealed for as long as we possibly can. And you should definitely come join us and check that out. That will be right here on this channel that you're watching this on. So if you are subscribed and you have that bell rung, you will get that notification as soon as we go live. Obviously, whenever you are available throughout the day, we encourage you to come join us. It doesn't have to be the second we go live. It doesn't have to be the whole time. Whatever you can do, any amount that you want to do, we would love to have you. It's going to be an awesome time. We're really looking forward to it, and we always have a great time with these events. So thank you to Wizards for sponsoring us. We're really looking forward to it. Yes. And then just as a reminder of other things as well, don't forget our other channels. I was like, where was I going with this? Our other channels are linked down in the description box below as well. And thank you for checking out Video Games for All and Gluten Free for All. 2 new videos this past month on Gluten Free for All. 1 new video coming out this month, correct? Yes. And then 3 videos a week over on Video Games for All, so you can sub and ring the bells there also. So, thank you for letting us, bearing with us for that. Now on to the full review itself. This story talked a lot about Urza, that's for sure. And there was kind of a lot of shade thrown at Urza. I think that some of the older, more entrenched individuals in the Magic story truly feel like there weren't enough people upset with Urza and Urza's stuff back in the day because Urza was mentioned in so many flavor text and shown in card art and whatever, named in the set names, Urza's Legacy, Destiny, etc., and Saga. And Urza's mine, tower, and power plant, that like people are really happy when they hear the name Urza. And the established individuals who have been following the story all along really, really, really want you to know that he wasn't good. Do you get it yet? Because he wasn't good. And they're really going to lay it on thick in this story. That, like, everyone today, in present day, who knows about Urza or hears about Urza, talks about the fact that he's crap. Because if you don't get it, he's crap. And you need to get it. Because, like I said, I think that's the MO of the people writing the stories, more so than what I think the actual people who would be discussing him would be doing. I think they would mention it, but not as much as these stories mention it. Not even a little bit. So there's that. But it was Saheeli basically being like, this time machine is bad. the plans for this time machine is awful. The person who's in the time machine isn't protected in any way. It's just bad. And so Saheeli like looked at the time machine plans because Teferi had given them to her, and she was just kind of like, oh, okay, you want me to do this? Okay, I'll do it. All right, I
just like took them and was like,
yep, and threw them out and was like, I'm gonna start over. Yeah. Okay, let's get this part out of the way quickly. Back in War of the Spark, I believe it was the Forsaken novel. It was either that or the main novel, but I believe it was the Forsaken novel. When I had complaints, as did many, but this is not the complaint that everyone else had. I thought it was weird, the new Kaya abilities that we learned about in War of the Spark Forsaken. Mm-hmm. Kaya was able to make herself incorporeal so that Rat could walk inside of her. So that when Kaya, Teo, and somebody else, I believe it was Jaya? I could be wrong. Whoever it was, kind of irrelevant to what I'm talking about, but still. Those three planeswalkers go to a different plane, but Rat comes with them. Rat being a plane-locked individual from Ravnica, a non-planeswalker, is able to come with them because Kaya fuses with Rat, essentially. Yeah. That because Kaya is incorporeal and Rat is able to enter Kaya's body, Rat becomes Kaya. And in fact, while planeswalking, because that's then what Kaya does, it even mentally has the two of them thinking that they are one entity as they are traveling through the Blind Eternities. And then when they get to whatever their destination was, again, kind of irrelevant to this particular discussion, that I don't remember it, but you're more than welcome to leave it down below if you really want to, they then separate and become their own individual selves again. They did that, who knows how many times, because there was kind of like a, and then they went off into the sunset together at like the end of the book, right, with like them being with Liliana, and so like they traveled around a little bit, and obviously Liliana ended up on Strixhaven. You were going to say something, I don't want to...
No.
No? Okay. And so all of that happens, and now in this story, we hear that not only can Kaya do that, which is insane that she can, but now she is projecting her ghost form onto an entire time machine, which is basically just, I guess, the coffin that Tawnos was trapped in that originally was meant for Mishra to be trapped in. But she extends her ghost form over that entire thing. And despite the fact that we've heard that Kaya can't be in her own ghost form fully for too long because she has to like breathe and it gets exhausting, and that when she planeswalked with Rat it was exhausting, all of those things, now she can project her entire ghost form over an entire coffin in a time machine that's crackling with energy, and a bunch of energy is flowing through the room at the same time. And then as that's happening, because we hear during the test that Teferi is not in the coffin at the time, but still, the test is occurring, and Saheeli has jumped behind a heat shield that Kaya, I guess, doesn't think is good enough to protect her. And so, after projecting her ghost form over the coffin, while the energy is bursting through the room, Kaya lets go of her ghost form on the coffin, runs over, and fully extends her ghost form also over Saheeli. So now she is fully in ghost form, Saheeli is fully in ghost form, and a moment ago, a coffin was fully in ghost form as well. And Kaya's just able to do that, and there's no discussion whatsoever of exhaustion, even feeling a little bit tired because of it, nothing. It's just something that she's just able to do now with no questions whatsoever, and it's like, I don't understand how any of this works in terms of the abilities that Kaya has.
Right.
Is she Superman, where they're just going to write in whatever new ability they need her to have in every set that she's in?
Clearly.
And you're never supposed to ask questions about it because just go with it. We need a character to do this.
They created her to be convenience.
It's just so weird.
Like, here's this weird thing we need to do. How are we going to do it? Okay, let's try using Kaya, and because she can do this weird thing, and we'll just stretch it to the outermost limits of what it makes sense for her to be able to do.
Yeah. Also, okay. Let's talk about something else that Saheeli said about time travel. I had written this at the end, but it was relevant. They discussed it here. They said that Saheeli said that the reason that Kaya was doing this with the coffin and making the coffin or Teferi inside the coffin incorporeal was so that when he traveled back in time, he wasn't physically there, so he couldn't change the events of the past. And that seemed to be a decision that all of them came to collectively, was that would be the best way to do that. Except, I mean, point of order, it seems like he already has changed the past at least twice from what we have learned. Yeah. Now, to be fair, already is a relative term because we've already, because we've already read about it, but based on when this story is occurring, it hasn't happened yet because they haven't even finished the testing yet, which means they haven't even done it yet. But again, like you said, with time travel being what it is, we know that Teferi's already done it, but in the stories, he hasn't gotten to that point yet. It's time travel, it's weird as shit, let's just go with it.
It's like Harry Potter, you know? He knew he could do it because he had already done it.
I guess. It's real weird. So yeah, that happens, but Teferi's already messed with the past because he made a warlord go crazy by showing up in his bedroom, right? We read about that in Main Story 2. And he possibly saved a man's life who would not have had the will to go on but for Teferi being there and saying what he said.
Right.
That one's not as definitive, but that's my headcanon. Maybe you disagree. Again, leave it in the comments down below.
I feel like it is.
So do I. I think that man would have died if not for hearing death himself say, not yet.
Right.
So that man is alive now, whereas he wasn't in the original timeline or the first time through or whatever. But now he is because Teferi was there. And that warlord would not have gone mad either at that time or at all if not for Teferi being in his room and jangling all of his, security measures or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's absolutely changing the past. So I get it. It's definitely possible that they kind of underestimated what that would do and that they were like, oh, it won't mess with the past, and then it just did anyway. But I just want to make sure that that's actually what it is, and not just them being like, he didn't mess with the past, it's fine, but he blatantly messed with the past. Yeah. So, and again, you may think
as
like...
As long as he didn't see himself in the past,
or bet on...
he got erased, then it's fine.
Yeah, I messed up my own joke. But yeah, or bet on any sporting events, right? But yeah, it's just very strange. So I don't know. That's something, I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Do you think that he's messing with the past? And do you think that it's that they just don't realize it? Or are they going to be like, he didn't mess with it. Nothing's ever going to come of it. Because that's what I want to know. What comes of that? Because these are two randos that would not have shown up, by that I mean the warlord and the individual who he saved. That's not going to, what was the person's name? Hold on, I have it here. I write notes for a reason. Eamon. A-I-M-A-N. Aemon was the individual who was from the Falaji army that would have likely died anyway. Or, not anyway. Would have likely died, but for Teferi. I'm curious if, like, what that changes. Because Aemon being alive and the warlord having gone mad and his people having lost faith in him, basically, that could change a lot. Like, specifically the warlord thing. But, I mean, even Aemon, who knows who will be alive because Aemon is alive and who won't be alive because Aemon is alive. Maybe Aemon finds a mate and they have kids, but that person that he mates with would have mated with somebody else who, you know, gave birth to whoever. Like, there's a lot of changes. I mean, you talk about the butterfly effect. That could change a lot of things. Do I think that we're going to get these stories anytime soon? No, we have a Phyrexian war to deal with. Do I think that we'll ever get these stories? The cynic in me says no.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it's also a no.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we could. I think that's really interesting. But I'm sure that, like, a year and a half from now, when they're done with the March of the Machines stories,
Right.
They're not going to turn around and be like, hey, you remember those two random dudes that Teferi messed with when traveling through time? Here's their stories. Aren't you interested? It's like, no, I guess I wouldn't be.
Yes.
Yeah, you and I, that's
Give
it. They were the only ones that would be interested in it.
Give it to me. Want it.
Oh my god. So yeah, I don't understand the Kaya nonsense. I just don't. It's more of the same of like, she could do whatever we need her to do, and it's like, she can't, she shouldn't be able to.
Right.
Like, these powers should probably make a little bit of sense. Like, I get, it's magic. Like, but...
But then nobody's powers need to make sense.
Yeah, like...
Because Magic the Gathering is magic.
And contrast it with the last set, where we complained constantly in Dominaria United, where it was like, Teferi and Jodah, two of like the oldest and most powerful mages possibly in the multiverse,
Yeah.
are like, we're casting simple spells. Oh, we're too tired because the story needs us to be. Okay, we're good again. Let's cast more spells. Oh, we're tired because the story needs us to be. And now Kaya's just like, oh no, I can do it all. It's fine. Like, what the hell?
Makes no sense.
Give me consistency, please. Like,
Or
that's
at least
all I ask.
Adequate reasoning for things.
Yeah, it happens, man. I was like very annoyed by that. We got a couple of cutaway sections with, again, in a set where there's time travel and your side stories are present day, but your main stories are in the past, but the past is being messed with by people from present day. Your side stories that are the present day stories having flashbacks to things that are not part of your main story, but help to gauge your characters in the side stories present day is a little bit too much for my brain.
Halfway through what you just said, I just stopped listening. I was like, I don't get it already. I just don't.
What I'm saying is, the fact that we had flashbacks in this story that is present day, but it wasn't flashing back to the past stories that we've been reviewing, very weird to me. I get it, and I loved those sections, so don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, it's a set about time travel, and now you're flashing back in your present. Way too confusing.
Yeah.
But all that to say, the sections with Saheeli and Gonti on Kaladesh were amazing.
Right.
All the moments with Gonti talking to her. I mean, we loved Kaladesh stories. They were really cool. Genuinely, I think two of my favorite Magic stories of all time are from the Kaladesh stories. I know you love Yahenni,
Yes.
who is an Aetherborn, so they were awesome. The moments with Gonti in this story were amazing. I knew as soon as the story mentioned that Saheeli saw like an individual in front of her with like a mask on or whatever, I was like, it's gonna be Gonti, it's so cool.
I didn't realize it was Gandhi. I was like, it could be anybody. Because I feel like a lot of times when we've been reading these stories, you've been like, do you know what it is? And I'm like, I don't know, man. The Silex? Fuck me, I don't know.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the Silex this time.
No,
it was
that
Gonti.
wasn't the Silex.
I know.
But
I know.
It was an example.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it's Gonti. And that was awesome. That moment of like, you know, classic like...
I did get the planar bridge one though.
She did in the last side story. And, yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's the planar bridge. And you're like, no, that's not what
Tezzeret,
it is.
like...
And then we kept reading, and eventually you were like, oh, the planar bridge. They said it.
I was so mad.
I was like, I know.
You're right enough so many times in our marriage. I don't need you to be right all the time in these stories, too. Just like rub it in my face, right?
Oh,
God, it's so funny. Anyway, so, yeah, so we had the moments with Gonti in this were awesome. Like, just being able to see more of Gonti, hear more about Gonti's Heart, which was a card from the set as well. Like, really flavorful, really cool. Also, I have to say, again, complaint. I guess, again, this is kind of how they're doing things these days, but you're in a set that talks about things that have happened in the past. Past Magic stories used to do this, and again, you know, return to the way it used to be. That's not what this is. It's just, I'm just throwing it out there. Not every piece of art in your stories needs to be from the set that your story is telling the story of.
Right.
It doesn't have to be. It hasn't been that way in the past, and it doesn't have to be that way now. Because let me tell you something. There is not a single piece of art in this story. Not one. Now, am I devastated by this? No. Is it frustrating? Yeah, I mean, yeah, a little. Why not show Gonti? Why not show Gonti's Heart? Those two things are a pretty big part of those flashbacks.
Yep.
You could absolutely show those card arts so that for people that weren't around back on Kaladesh, at least they have a visual representation of what that card looks like.
Right. Or hell, in a bind, you could put a picture of Saheeli or Kaya or Teferi or whatever. Like,
yeah, I imagine that the reason that they don't, and I have no inside information, this is purely a guess on my part, is that because of the times that these stories are coming out and that they are rushed to come out before the story, I don't think they want speculation that, oh my god, Gonti and Gonti's Heart are going to be cards in this set.
Right.
Saheeli's going to be a card in this set. But to be completely honest with you, you would have the art and the artist there that people would have seen before. And I don't recall if you have the date printed at the bottom. I don't remember if that is correct or not. But if you do, of the art, that helps too. Be like, oh, okay, it's not from 2022. It's not from this set.
One.
Yeah. Like, they used to do that in older stories. And again, for a set that talks about things that happened in the past as well as the present, like, why not show older art, newer art? When we meet Xantia, show Xantia, right? Now, maybe she has a card in this set that I don't recall having seen yet, and so they don't want to show Xantia because if they would show that, but it was too early to preview it or something? I don't know, but have a picture or something. Like, I just don't understand. Yeah. Like, it's a visual medium. You want people to be excited about your card set? Give them more. Give us more information. It's not that hard to add a piece of art in there. It's just not. Like, you have access to the archives of images. Use the archives. That's just me, man. That's me personally. As always, obviously you seem to agree as well.
Yeah.
Like, leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you disagree? There was not a single piece. I've seen stories where I've been upset that there was one. I don't recall if there have been any stories where there have been none.
I don't believe so. It's not since we've been reading them.
There's got to be one that I'm not remembering. Because again, older stories wouldn't have had it, or would have had plenty. So before we started reading, there would have been no time where there would have been none, because they would have used art from past sets as well if they needed to. So I just don't know. I can't imagine that there are any, but if there are, if you remember, let us know in the comments down below.
I mean, obviously, like, novels and stuff like that is different.
Very different. Very different. Okay. There's a moment that you wanted to talk about a bit, and I thought it was a little weird, but you have Joda finally mentioning and revealing to Saheeli and Kaya that the benefactor for all of these machinations, this tower, and Teferi's mentor, who's this like mysterious person that they've mentioned his name before, but it doesn't seem like they have, even though it would mean nothing to Saheeli and Kaya, so why not say his name?
Man.
It's the Raven Man. Yeah, it's more like Voldemort. Like, they're like not saying his name, but it doesn't matter because these two would have no context for who he is. So like if you say Urza...
Joe, he's back!
Yeah. Voldemort? Yeah. They would have no context for you saying his name. So saying this is Urza's tower means nothing to them. Like if you say, this is Urza, my old mentor's tower, okay, now they have at least context for it. So it doesn't matter if you say Urza ever again. But it seemed like it was purposeful that he wasn't saying it until he finally did and was like, oh, yeah, Urza, my ancestor. And they're like, why didn't you tell us this before? Now, granted, for Joda's benefit, irrelevant. Like, it will help Saheeli and Kaya not at all to know that it was Joda's ancestor, except maybe for, like, conversations. Like, Saheeli said something to the effect of, like, you know, I thought that he would have trusted me more than that or something because we'd been having lunch together and stuff and, like, bonding.
Aww.
But, like, it's not about that, Saheeli. It's just,
well,
you know,
like a past family medical history might be important, you know.
Well, and speaking of family anything, the reason that Joda gave, which is what you wanted to talk about, was he said, quote, family matters are rarely simple.
Yeah. I was just like, fact. That's it. I'm not going to talk about it more.
Fair enough. If you've seen our other JaARs, you get it.
Or if you have a family, you get it.
Also true. Then we get the section with Sharaman, who is the spirit individual who led Urza's armies in the past. And Sharaman's spirit was tethered to the Starfield Orb that Joda eventually starts messing with later, but that Teferi had just given to Saheeli and Kaya and was like, here, this is part of it. This will help. And so this spirit wasn't, I guess maybe it wasn't tethered to the Starfield Orb, but was drawing power from the Starfield Orb to allow itself to become more stronger and more corporeal over time. Saheeli set a trap, trapped it, and then it tries to get away. They chase it, and Saheeli tries to talk to it and figure out what he, I guess, now that they found out that it's Sharaman, find out what he wants and why he's still there and why he is stopping them from making this time machine. And he reveals, in kind of a sad moment, that he led Urza's armies and now seems to deeply regret it.
Yeah.
Had family members die. He lost himself in that process. Again, did you know Urza was bad? Did you know that? Anyway, and the war is bad. But Saheeli gets to try to reason with him and actually has a conversation as he is slowly kind of becoming incorporeal again. Fully. And when he does fully become incorporeal, Kaya is just like, okay, I guess we got to do this. And Saheeli was like really trying to be peaceful about it.
Yeah.
And Kaya just goes ghost and, you know, Danny Phantom reference. And then, sorry, I didn't mean to do that, I promise. And then kind of thrusts forward and kills him. We don't see it, or Saheeli doesn't see it, but it happens. Kaya, like, mutters something that Saheeli can't hear, presumably because it's, like, in the astral plane that she can be heard. And then comes out of it. Shh. Pushing it in slowly. Saving Private Ryan style. God, that scene's messed up. Anyway. Yeah. That part was sad and rough. And it, to a degree, messed Kaya up a bit. To the point where she flat out is just like, I wish I was more like you, Saheeli. I wish I was a good person.
And I was like, oh.
Yeah, because at first I loved the emotion on your face because you didn't know what was coming, but I did because I was able to like read the full line. But you like when I was like, "Oh, Kaya says I wish I could be more like you, Saheeli." You like smiled, and then I was like, "I wish I could be a good person." You were like, "Oh." It's like, yeah, that was not going the direction you thought it was. That was not a compliment. That was a self-own. Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, what Kaya basically said is she was like, and again, it's a concept of war. Kaya felt like she could justify killing all of the evil spirits, right? All the shithead spirits, where it's like, oh, okay, you deserve to die. I'll just kill you.
You don't know that.
Well,
just don't.
Whereas this guy seemed like a decent person, and Kaya could understand his reasoning for being a vengeful spirit and saying, I don't want you to do this again because you're restarting Urza's war machine. That ruined my life. So I'm not going to let you ruin my life or other people's lives again, so I'm going to stop you. And now Kaya just kills him in cold blood and then feels, well, no blood, but cold for sure. Sorry. And then feels very badly about it.
In cold mist.
In cold ectoplasm. And so, yeah, I just I get it. I get why she's upset. I get why she killed him because they wouldn't have been able to wrangle him again. And so if he kept trying to do it, they may have never been able to get this off the ground. And again, a lot of them are using this rationale, but it's the end justifies the means of, like, similar to what Kayla and Tanos did in the main stories. They're justifying using Urza's things and plans and stuff because, well, we won't mess it up this time. We need it to stop the Phyrexians. It's the only way. Anybody else see Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness? I'm just saying, it's the same idea of like, look, when he did it, it was bad, but I'm going to do it because I have to, and it's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay. So, I don't know.
Hey, man, we're all just doing the friggin' best we can.
God, isn't that the truth?
It sucks, and that's it.
Yeah. And then the last thing, and I genuinely think this is even a little much for me to be able to wrap my head around fully, but I know it's something that you had strong feelings about, and so I want us to be able to talk about it, and then obviously pass the question off to you as we do with literally anything, whether we specifically say it or not. And that's the advice that Gonti gives Saheeli. Sorry, I looked down at the name Kaya on the paper. Gonti says, look down at my city. Everything that I've done for this city,
everything the light touches
is my kingdom. Everything I've done for this city, I did because I've been through war. And to get through war, you have to become war. Now, what Saheeli takes away from that at the end of this story is thinking back to herself and her family and her friends. She thinks about Watley as well, says that they're the greatest lips in the multiverse. Props, love it. She says that she is still going to hope and strive for peace, but that when it comes to her family and her friends, if she needs to, she can still become the war. Now, like I said, I felt like you had strong opinions.
Yeah. Well, I was just like, do not recommend. Because the only thing that does is cause more war.
And I mean, that...
Jumping into a terrible cycle perpetuates how terrible it is. And that's a pretty basic concept for somebody to understand.
Yeah.
regardless of what the topic is.
Yeah, and yet I think that's still how it has been justified for millennia. Like, is that is that appropriate to say millennia? I think it's millennia.
I mean, I think it's before time, because I think war existed before people decided to create time.
Yeah, or even know what to call it. Like, to call it war. Sure. Yeah, it's just, it's such a tough thing, because peace is very tough to foster, and yet that's why it's something it's still worth fighting for because of it. And so when you have philosophies like, to get through the war, you have to become war.
Well, so Gonti mentioned, the shit that they went through as a race, essentially.
They being the Etherborn.
And used that as a justification for doing the same thing to other people.
Yeah, for sure.
And was like, well, you don't understand. You're not going through anything traumatic or terrible, because I promise it's not as bad as what I went through. Mm-hmm. That's a load of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had learned anything from your experience as someone who was discriminated against or murdered or whatever, then you would do the opposite. And you would not cause those afflictions to others. But, unfortunately, when that happens to people, that's what they do. Because they're like, well, if you're going to harm me to that degree, my response is going to be to harm you to a worse degree. And again, that's just perpetuating a terrible cycle that doesn't need to exist. You just don't.
Well, and it kind of goes back to how Saheeli was compelled to help Gonti in the first place, because Saheeli wasn't going to help Gonti, realizing that Gonti was bad. Bad for Ghirapur, bad for Kaladesh, bad for in general. And she was like, oh, well, here's my opportunity. Sorry, can't help you. And
she was just gonna let Gonti die.
And that's when Gonti said, okay, I was hoping you wouldn't make me go here, but here. And tosses her mother's necklace or bracelet at Saheeli, and Saheeli catches it. I wrote it down, but it really doesn't matter whether it's necklace or bracelet, to be honest. But
nope.
Anyway, I can't find it, and it's not worth it. But that's when Saheeli's like, all right, I guess I have to save my family. And so sure enough, at the end, that's when she says, if somebody messes with her family or her friends, she will become war. And so, again, fighting for peace is important, but you have to be able to do it even when challenged in your pursuit of it. Which is what happened with Saheeli, and while she tried to keep fostering peace, she says, if it's about my family or friends, it'll be war. And that's kind of when you get into the, revenge territory and stuff like that, which is a bit of a dangerous path to take when trying to seek peace, like you're talking about.
My point is that fighting for peace, it does not make sense. It is a paradox.
Well, that's why I said fostering peace.
Okay.
But
how people do that is by fighting for it.
Sure.
And it doesn't make sense.
Sure.
Because fighting is war. It is not peace.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want peace, then what you need to do is change the culture and the mindset that creates the problem that causes the war.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, how could you have a story called The Brothers' War without talking about war in any capacity? We talked about it with the last story review that we did, and we talked about it in this one as well. For as much as you are comfortable discussing it, because that's literally with anything, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. We would love, love, love to hear from you, because it seems like, I mean, and again, it makes sense, but it seems like that's what these stories are attempting to foster. And being able to have arguably difficult discussions,
I wasn't done.
Go ahead.
No, yeah, so I was just gonna say, that we've had this discussion before in many JaARs. The problem is people treated Gonti and Gonti's race and people as though they were less than. And so Gonti's response then is to do it back. And all that is war. The end. The way to fix that is to not do it back and say, you're wrong for doing it. And so instead, I'm going to do something else. And then I'm going to teach my descendants to do something else. And I'm going to teach my neighbors that discriminating against me is not right. But I'm going to do it with love for them in my heart. Because if I don't, that's war. And if it isn't war yet, it will be. Because it will create it. That's all.
Fair enough. Like I said, truly, any and all thoughts that you have in the comments down below. I don't think it will be an issue because it literally never has been, but let's keep it civil. Just because, you know, that's otherwise would be antithetical to what we were just talking about. But yeah, we want to hear people's thoughts because thank you, Amy, for making that last point as well. I apologize for almost cutting you off.
It's okay.
Being able to have difficult discussions with regard to a set about war, right? Where some people may look at the set and be like, big robots, right? Transformers, it's awesome. It's still called the Brothers' War. It was still devastating to an entire culture, multiple generations of peoples, and we're seeing only some of that impact in these stories, and so it can lead to harsher discussions. But I still think that being able to have those discussions centered around Magic story is a great way for all of you to join us as we show off our...
#Vorthos Pride.
That's right. Super important. Thank you so much for being here. We really hope you all enjoyed. As I said, we're going to actually try our best to still have a video out on Thursday, which will be during the day of the stream. No promises, but we're going to try. So definitely stay tuned for that. Again, subbing, ringing the bell on any and all channels that we have. Links down in the description box below for the other two. Or they'll be popping up here on the screen in a moment as we close out this video. But that will be super helpful to you. You will get notifications whenever any of our videos come out or whenever we go live. Again, we should be live this Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, right? Yes. Right here on this channel. Thank you to Wizards for sponsoring us for that event, the early access event for Brothers' War on MTG Arena. We hope to see you there. And we hope to see you in more of the JaARs going forward because we still have lots more to go. In fact, at least 4. Nope, 5. We have 5 more to go. We're halfway through. So we would love it if you would join us for the rest of these as well. We will see you in the next one. And for now, from us here at the Geek for All family of channels, I have been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.